The massive starship glided silently through the dark edges of known space. Its sleek hull gleamed under the light of distant stars as Captain Ross stood on the bridge, his four eyes narrowing at the sight before him. The ship's sensors had picked up something unusual, a vast collection of metal shapes floating in the void. "What do you make of it, Doctor?" Ross asked, turning to his science officer. Dr. Miller walked forward on his three legs, his green skin reflecting the soft blue light of the ship's controls. "Fascinating, Captain. These readings suggest we're looking at approximately 3,000 vessels of varying sizes. They appear to be ancient, possibly predating even the Council's formation." Ross laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. "Ancient indeed. Look at that primitive design. No quantum shields, no plasma drives. They're practically museum pieces." But Dr. Miller wasn't laughing. His sensors were picking up energy signatures unlike anything he'd seen before. The fleet might look old, but something about it made his scientific instincts tingle with excitement. "Sir, I recommend we inform the Galactic Council immediately. This could be significant." Ross waved one of his upper arms dismissively. "Very well. Though I don't see what's so special about a graveyard of obsolete ships." Within hours, the council chamber was filled with representatives from the 30 most advanced species in the galaxy. High Counselor Webb, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, called the emergency session to order. "We have discovered what appears to be an ancient fleet," Ross reported, his hologram floating in the center of the chamber. "Preliminary scans showed technology far inferior to our current standards. I recommend we salvage what we can for historical research and clear this sector for modern traffic." Dr. Miller stepped forward, his voice steadied despite his nervousness. "Council members, I must disagree. These ships, they're different. Our scans can't penetrate their hulls. And there's radiation we can't explain. We need to study them properly." The chamber erupted in laughter. A reptilian counselor wiped tears from his scales. "You want us to waste resources studying primitive technology. Those ships probably still run on nuclear fission." But Miller persisted. "Look at these readings." He projected a complex series of energy signatures. "This isn't random decay. These ships are in some kind of standby mode. They're waiting for something." The laughter died down slightly. High Counselor Webb floated closer to examine the data. "Interesting. Where did these ships come from? Who built them?" "Unknown," Miller replied. "But we found markings on the hulls. They're in no language we recognize, but they're clearly artificial. Someone built this fleet for a purpose." Ross stepped forward again. "Whatever purpose that was, it's long dead now. These ships are relics of a forgotten age. Probably belonged to some species that died out before they achieved real space travel." The council members nodded in agreement. They were the pinnacle of evolution, the most advanced beings in known space. Surely nothing truly important could have existed before them. "Very well," Webb announced. "We'll establish a research station to study these artifacts. Captain Ross, your team will oversee the operation. But keep it small. We don't want to waste too many resources on ancient history." As the meeting ended, Dr. Miller took one last look at the sensor readings. Something about those ships made him uneasy. The energy patterns were too organized, too purposeful. And in one corner of the data screen, a tiny indicator was flashing. The ships were drawing power. Very, very slowly, but steadily. They weren't dead. They were sleeping. And as the research station began its work, deep within the ancient fleet, something stirred. In a hidden compartment of the largest vessel, a computer system older than the Galactic Council itself processed a new input: the presence of nearby life forms. A program activated, comparing their genetic signatures to its database. Asterisk species unknown. Classification: not authorized asterisk. The computer returned to its vigil, waiting for the genetic signature it had guarded for thousands of years, waiting for the return of its creators, waiting for humans. 2 weeks had passed since the discovery of the ancient fleet. The research station hung in space, like a bright spider web between the old ships. Dr. Miller was reviewing his latest scans when the alarm sounded. Unknown vessel approaching. The station's AI announced. Design doesn't match any known species. Captain Ross rushed to the command center, his 4 arms flying over the controls. "Show me." A hologram appeared, showing a large ship moving steadily toward them. Its design was strange. Not beautiful like council ships, but strong and practical. The hull was marked with unfamiliar symbols, similar to those on the ancient fleet. "Send the standard greeting," Ross ordered. The station broadcast the council's welcome message in 100 different languages. The response came quickly, in simple audio format. "This is Commander Stone of the Earthship Pioneer. We're looking for something we lost a long time ago." The bridge crew stared at each other. They had never heard of Earth or its people. Ross activated the communication screen, showing his alien face to the newcomers. "I am Captain Ross of the Galactic Council. Your ship design is unknown to us. Please identify your species." The screen changed, showing a pink-skinned, 2-armed being with fur on top of its head. "We're humans," Commander Stone said. His eyes widened as he saw the ancient fleet behind the station. "And I believe you found what we're looking for." Ross laughed, a common reaction among council species to surprising news. "Impossible. These ships are thousands of years old. Your species looks barely advanced enough for space travel." Dr. Miller watched the humans' reaction carefully. Instead of anger, Commander Stone showed only calm certainty. "Those are our ancestors' ships," Stone said. "We've been searching for the lost fleet for generations." The news spread quickly through the research station. More humans appeared on the screen, all similar to Stone, but with different colors of skin and fur. They called themselves the crew of the Pioneer, one of many ships searching for humanity's lost history. "Prove it," Ross demanded. "These ships contain technology we can't even understand. How could your primitive species have built them?" Stone's answer was simple. "Let us dock with the station. We'll show you." After much discussion and security checks, the Pioneer connected with the research station. Dr. Miller was there to meet them. He watched in fascination as 20 humans walked through the airlock, wearing simple spacesuits that seemed far too basic for deep space travel. "Take us to the fleet," Stone asked. His voice was polite but firm. The council security team surrounded them with weapons ready. Ross had insisted on heavy protection, not trusting these strange beings. They all walked to the nearest ancient ship, where the council had cut an entrance through the hull. As they approached, something extraordinary happened. Lights began to flicker along the old ship's surface. Ancient systems hummed to life. "That's impossible," Ross whispered. "We've tried everything to activate these systems." Stone smiled. "They were waiting for us." He walked to a dark panel on the wall and placed his hand on it. The metal glowed, scanning his palm, and suddenly the whole corridor lit up. Genetic verification confirmed. A voice spoke in an old language that only the humans seemed to understand. Human presence detected. "Welcome home, children of Earth." Dr. Miller's instruments went crazy. All around them, the ancient ship was waking up. Doors opened, revealing rooms filled with technology far beyond anything the council had ever seen. "How?" Ross demanded, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "How did you build this?" "We didn't," Stone explained, walking through the awakening ship like he belonged there. "Our ancestors did, during humanity's golden age. We lost this technology long ago, but the ships remembered us. They've been waiting for humans to return." Deep inside the fleet, more systems were activating. The computer core that had waited so long finally found what it was looking for: human DNA. As the humans walked through their ancestors' ship, the fleet began to share its secrets. The council species watched in shocked silence as humanity's past glory was revealed. They had laughed at these simple-looking beings, but now they began to understand. They weren't dealing with primitives at all. They were dealing with the children of giants. The next day, Dr. Miller found himself working alongside Jack, the human historian from the Pioneer. They sat in a newly activated control room, surrounded by holographic displays showing ancient data streams. "This is incredible," Jack said, his fingers moving across the control panel with natural ease. "These are our lost archives. Thousands of years of human history we thought was gone forever." Dr. Miller watched in amazement as images appeared in the air around them. He saw great cities that touched the clouds, machines that could reshape planets, and ships that could bend space itself. "Your people built all this?" "Yes," Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the displays. Before the Great Sleep, humans had spread across hundreds of star systems. We were one of the first species to master faster-than-light travel. Captain Ross stood in the doorway, his upper arms crossed in disbelief. "Impossible. The Council has records of all major technological developments in our galaxy. There's no mention of humans achieving such things." Jack turned to face him. "That's because it happened before the Council existed, before your oldest records began." He touched another panel, and a timeline appeared. "Our golden age was over 20,000 years ago." The room fell silent. Even Ross couldn't find words to argue. The evidence was all around them, written in technology that still worked perfectly after thousands of years. "But what happened?" Dr. Miller asked. "Why did your people lose all this?" Jack's face grew serious. "We grew too powerful, too quickly. Our technology advanced faster than our wisdom. When we faced a crisis, we made a choice: to go into hibernation, to sleep until we were ready for this power again." More displays activated, showing rows of massive sleep chambers. Millions of humans had gone into suspended animation, waiting for their descendants to find them again. But something had gone wrong. Many of the chambers had failed. Only a few humans had survived, forced to rebuild their civilization from scratch. "The fleet was left here as a guardian," Jack explained, "waiting for humanity to grow up again, to find our way back to the stars. Everything our ancestors knew is stored in these computers." Dr. Miller's instruments detected a new power surge. Throughout the fleet, more systems were coming online, responding to human presence. The ships were sharing their knowledge, teaching their long-lost children. "This can't be right," Ross muttered, looking at a technical readout. "These power readings, they're beyond anything we have today. Even the Council's best ships can't generate this kind of energy." Jack smiled sadly. "That's what we've been trying to tell you. Humanity wasn't always the simple species you see now. We were giants once, and we can be again." Suddenly, alarms blared through the station. More Council ships had arrived, drawn by reports of the fleet's activation. On the main screen, they watched as the High Councilor's personal vessel appeared. "The Council is worried," Ross explained. "They're afraid of what this means. If humans really built all this, then everything the Council believed about being the height of evolution was wrong," Dr. Miller finished. Jack stood up, his face determined. "We don't want to threaten anyone. We just want to reclaim our heritage, to learn from our ancestors' mistakes and their achievements." The archives continued to reveal their secrets: designs for engines that could cross galaxies, weapons that could move stars, and shields that could protect entire worlds. With each revelation, the Council species grew more nervous. But Dr. Miller noticed something interesting. The humans weren't rushing to claim these weapons or seize power. Instead, they were carefully studying everything, taking notes, learning. "You're being very patient," he said to Jack. "Your people could probably activate these ships' weapon systems and take control right now." Jack looked up from his work. "That's exactly why our ancestors went to sleep, because they weren't ready for this power. This time, we're going to do things right. Learn everything we can. Understand it all completely." As if in response to his words, the fleet's computers began displaying more data, showing not just the technology, but the mistakes that had been made, the lessons learned. The children of Earth were finally coming home, and this time, They were determined to learn from the past. The mood on the research station changed dramatically when the first ancient ship fully powered up. It started with a low hum that everyone could feel in their bones. Then, one by one, the massive engines of the fleet began to wake. Commander Stone stood on the bridge of the largest ship, which the archives identified as the Earth's Legacy. Around him, dormant control panels blazed to life, responding to his presence. The ship's AI spoke in a deep, clear voice. Full genetic match confirmed. Welcome, Commander. All systems are now at your disposal. Captain Ross and Dr. Miller watched from a safe distance as golden light rippled across the huge vessel's hull, ancient armor plates shifting and repairing themselves. Self-repairing technology, Dr. Miller whispered in awe. The metal is fixing itself. The Council's emergency meeting chamber erupted into chaos as live feeds showed more ships awakening. High Counselor Webb's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. How many ships are active? Webb demanded. Ross checked his readings. 300 so far, High Counselor. And more are waking up every hour. And the weapons? Another council member asked fearfully. Dr. Miller stepped forward. We've detected defense systems that make our best weapons look like toys, but the humans haven't activated any of them. Back on Earth's Legacy, Commander Stone and his crew were discovering just how advanced their ancestors had been. Jack had found the ship's main armory, filled with weapons that could destroy stars. Look at this, Jack called out, pointing to a massive cannon. According to the database, this could punch a hole through space itself. Stone nodded seriously. And that's exactly why we need to be careful. Power like this is what caused the Great Sleep in the first place. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the fleet. The ancient AI's voice rang out. Warning. Unauthorized attempts to access weapon systems detected. Everyone turned to see 3 council engineers trying to hack into a weapon terminal. Their faces showed a mix of fear and desperation. Stop. Captain Ross shouted at his people. What are you doing? The lead engineer looked up, his 6 eyes wide with panic. The council ordered us to disable the fleet's weapons. They're afraid of what the humans might do with them. Commander Stone walked calmly to the terminal. With a simple touch, he locked out all non-human access. We understand your fear, he said, but these ships know their true masters. As if to prove his point, the entire fleet suddenly lit up. Thousands of ships, stretching into the distance, glowed with ancient power. Energy readings went off the scales. Dr. Miller's instruments showed him something incredible. The ships, they're talking to each other. The AIs are networked. They're sharing information. The main screen lit up with a message that made the council species step back in shock. Human presence VERI. HIED. Activating defense guide. All systems online. A massive energy field spread from ship to ship, forming a web of golden light. The fleet wasn't just a collection of ships. It was a single, massive defensive system. Captain Ross watched as his most advanced sensors failed to penetrate even the outer layer of the defense grid. All this time, he said quietly, we thought we were studying museum pieces. But we were sitting in the middle of the most powerful weapons platform ever built. Commander Stone placed a reassuring hand on Ross's shoulder. We don't want war, Captain. We never did. These defenses were built to protect, not to conquer. Then what do you want? Ross asked. To learn, to understand, to do better than our ancestors did, Stone replied. The fleet is awake now, yes, but we're not going to repeat the mistakes of the past. As if responding to his words, the defense grid's golden light softened, becoming less threatening but no less powerful. The ancient ships hung in space, their power obvious but restrained. Dr. Miller looked at his readings one last time and smiled. The humans could have taken control of everything the moment they arrived. Instead, they chose patience and wisdom. Perhaps, he thought, that's why their ancestors left this fleet waiting for them. Not as a weapon, but as a test. A test that humanity, this time, seemed determined to pass. The peace of the ancient fleet was shattered by emergency alarms. Red lights flashed across every ship and station in the sector. Captain Ross burst into the command center, all four arms working different control panels. "Multiple hostile ships detected," he shouted. "They're coming out of deep space." Commander Stone and Dr. Miller rushed to the main viewport. The sight made them freeze. Hundreds of dark shapes were appearing from nowhere, their ships looking like giant insects made of black metal. "The swarm," Ross whispered, his voice shaking. "We thought they were just stories to scare children." The Council's most advanced battleships moved to defend the sector. Their weapons, normally devastating, seemed to bounce off the swarm's ships like raindrops. The enemy vessels didn't even slow down. "What are they?" Stone asked, watching as the Council fleet scattered under the attack. Dr. Miller checked his databases. According to legend, they appear every 1,000 years to feed on civilizations. No one has ever stopped them. The swarm's ships moved closer to the research station. Their dark hulls absorbed all light, making them look like holes in space. A transmission cut through all channels, filled with clicking and harsh sounds. "Your weapons are useless," the transmission translated. "Your worlds will feed us. Surrender and die quickly." High Counselor Webb's hologram appeared, his crystal form dimmer than usual. "Captain Ross, you must protect the ancient fleet. If the swarm takes that technology..." Too late. Ross pointed at the screens. 3 swarm ships had reached the outer edge of the fleet. They extended dark tendrils, ready to cut into the old ships. But something unexpected happened. The moment the swarm touched the first ancient ship, golden energy sparked. The defense grid that had appeared earlier suddenly blazed to life. The swarm's cutting beams couldn't penetrate it. "Hostile intent detected," the fleet's AI announced, activating primary defense systems. Commander Stone looked at Jack. "Can we fight them?" Jack nodded, his hands flying over the ancient controls. "The fleet's weapons are ready, but we need humans at every main control station. The ships won't fire without our direct command." Captain Ross swallowed his pride. "Please," he said to Stone, "help us. The Council's best weapons are useless against them." Stone didn't hesitate. "Signal the Pioneer. Get every human we have to a control station. Dr. Miller, we'll need you to coordinate with the Council ships. Captain Ross, have your people fall back behind the fleet's defense grid." The next few minutes were chaos. Human crew members ran to their positions inside the ancient ships. The fleet's golden energy shield expanded, creating a safe zone for the Council vessels to retreat into. Swarm ships approaching firing range, the AI reported, awaiting human authorization for weapons release. Stone stood at the main control panel of Earth's legacy. "All humans report ready." "Then let's show them what our ancestors built these ships for," Jack said. Commander Stone took a deep breath. "Fleet command, weapons free. Defend all life in this sector." The ancient ships moved like dancers in perfect sync. Weapons that hadn't been fired in 20,000 years opened up. Beams of light brighter than suns struck the swarm ships. Where Council weapons had failed, the fleet's advanced technology cut through the dark hulls like paper. "Impossible." The swarm's transmission screeched. "No civilization has this level of technology." More swarm ships appeared, thousands of them. They launched all their weapons at once, a storm of dark energy that would have destroyed any normal defense. The fleet's golden shield didn't even flicker. "Should we pursue them if they retreat?" Jack asked, watching as more swarm ships were destroyed. Stone shook his head. "Defensive fire only. We protect. We don't chase." Captain Ross watched in amazement as the mighty swarm, terror of Council space, began to retreat. Ships that had seemed unstoppable were running from the ancient fleet's power. "Now I understand," he said quietly to Dr. Miller. "This is why the fleet waited for humans. Not because of genetic locks or technology." Miller nodded, but because they remembered to use power wisely, to protect rather than conquer. The swarm's retreat turned into a rout. The dark ships vanished back into deep space, leaving behind only floating debris as proof they had ever existed. The ancient fleet had proven itself, and humanity had proven they were ready for its power. The council chamber was silent as Captain Ross gave his report. The floating screens behind him showed images of the battle, the ancient fleet's golden shields protecting both human and council ships alike. "The swarm has been driven back," Ross said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "Thanks to the humans and their ancestors' fleet." High Counselor Webb's crystal form brightened. "The same humans we laughed at. The same fleet we called primitive." The shame in his voice was clear. The massive doors of the chamber opened. Commander Stone walked in with Jack and 2 other human crew members. The council species, who had once mocked these primitive apes, now stood in respect. "Commander Stone," Webb said, floating down to meet them, "we owe you and your people an apology. Our pride nearly cost us everything." Stone smiled. "No apology needed, High Counselor. We're just glad we could help." Dr. Miller stepped forward, his 3 legs moving quickly as he carried a datapad. "Council members, the ancient fleet's sensors detected something important. The swarm is regrouping. They'll return with more ships." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Even with the fleet's power, could they face an even larger swarm attack? "There's more," Jack added. "The fleet's archives show that the swarm attacked Earth during our ancient times. That's why these ships were built, to protect all life from them." Captain Ross moved to stand beside Stone. "Then we need to work together." Council technology combined with the fleet's power cooled. Alarms cut him off. The main screen showed hundreds of swarm ships emerging from deep space, far more than before. "They're attacking 12 council worlds at once," Dr. Miller reported. "The fleet can't protect them all." Stone looked at the council members. "We'll need your help. The fleet has the power, but we don't have enough humans to crew all the ships." "But the genetic locks," Ross started. "Can be bypassed," Jack interrupted. "The archives show our ancestors built in emergency protocols. If humans authorize it, other species can operate the ships." High Counselor Webb straightened to his full height. "After how we treated you, you'd trust us with your ancestors' weapons." "Trust has to start somewhere," Stone said. "Captain Ross, would you like to learn how to fly an ancient warship?" Ross's 4 eyes widened. "Me? But I laughed at your people. I called you primitives. And then you swallowed your pride and asked for help when it mattered." Stone replied. "That's the kind of wisdom these ships were built to serve." The next hours were a blur of activity. Human crews taught council operators how to work the ancient systems. The fleet split into 12 battle groups, each led by a human commander working with council officers. On the bridge of Earth's legacy, Commander Stone and Captain Ross stood side by side. The vessel's eyes spoke. Emergency protocols activated. Council species authorized for combat operations. "All ships report ready," Jack announced from his station. Dr. Miller worked beside him, coordinating the combined fleet's movements. "The swarm is attacking," Miller reported. "All 12 worlds at once." Stone looked at Ross, ready to show them what our peoples can do together. Ross nodded, his hand steady on the ancient controls. "Ready, and thank you for trusting us." "Fleet command to all ships," Stone's voice rang out. "Remember our ancestors' lesson. We fight to protect, not to destroy. Launch defensive pattern Alpha. Engage the enemy." The ancient fleet moved as one, its golden shields now protecting ships of all species. Council technology linked with the old systems, making them even stronger. Where one fleet would have been overwhelmed, the combined forces stood strong. "The swarm is falling back from 3 worlds already," Miller reported excitedly. "The combined shields are working." As they watched the battle unfold, Stone smiled at the sight of human and council crews working together. Their ancestors had built these ships to protect life. Now, 20,000 years later, their children were finally fulfilling that mission. Not alone. but united. 3 days after the final battle, the combined fleet gathered around Earth's legacy. The space around them was quiet again, the swarm driven away not just from Council space, but from the galaxy itself. Commander Stone stood in the great hall of the Council chamber, now filled with representatives from every species. The walls showed holographic images of their victory, ancient ships fighting alongside Council vessels, their golden shields protecting countless worlds. "The final numbers are in," Dr. Miller announced, his green skin glowing with excitement. 0 civilian casualties. Not a single protected world lost. The swarm has retreated beyond the galaxy's edge. High Counselor Webb floated forward, his crystal form shining brightly. "For 1,000 generations, the swarm terrorized our peoples. Now, thanks to humanity and their ancestors' wisdom, that terror is over." Captain Ross stepped up next to Stone. In the past week, the four-armed alien had become one of his closest friends. "It wasn't just the fleet's power that won this war," Ross said. "It was humanity's choice to share that power." Jack walked in, carrying an ancient data core from the fleet's archives. "We found something interesting," he said. "A message from our ancestors, meant to be played when the fleet was used to protect all species." The chamber fell silent as a hologram appeared. An ancient human stood before them, wearing the uniform of Earth's first space fleet. "To our children," the recording began, "if you're seeing this, you've done what we could not. You've learned to use power wisely, to protect rather than conquer. The fleet was never meant to be just humanity's shield. It was built to guard all life." Stone looked around the chamber. Species that had once laughed at humans now watched with respect and friendship. The message continued. "The swarm taught us a hard lesson. No species can survive alone. Only together can we face the darkness between stars. This fleet is our gift not just to our children, but to all who choose to protect life." Dr. Miller's instruments picked up something new. Throughout the fleet, ancient systems were changing, adapting. "The genetic locks," he said in surprise. "They're being rewritten. Authorization protocols updated," the fleet's AI announced. "All Council species now granted full access. Command structure. Joint operation between human and Council leadership." High Counselor Webb turned to Stone. "You're giving us equal control of the fleet." "We're not giving it," Stone smiled. "We're sharing it, just as our ancestors intended." Captain Ross looked at his control panel, now permanently linked to the ancient ship systems. "But how can we be sure we'll use this power wisely?" "Because we learned from our mistakes," Jack said. "Both humanity's ancient errors and the Council's recent ones. Pride falls before wisdom." The chamber erupted in cheers as the fleet's golden energy field expanded, now permanently linking Council and human ships together. Dr. Miller's readings showed the combined technology growing even stronger, evolving into something new. "Look," Miller pointed to his screens. "The fleet's AI is teaching our computers, and our computers are updating their systems. They're growing together." Stone walked to the chamber's great window. The ancient fleet stretched out before him, no longer just a relic of humanity's past, but a symbol of all species' future. "Our ancestors waited 20,000 years," he said quietly, "not just for humans to return, but for all of us to be ready to work together." Ross joined him at the window. "And to think, we laughed at these ships when we found them." "Sometimes," Stone replied, "the best lessons start with a laugh and end with understanding." As if in response, the fleet's ships lit up one by one, their golden light merging with the advanced technology of the Council. What had begun as a discovery of ancient vessels had become something more, the beginning of a new age. An age where the children of Earth and the species of the Council would face the universe together, protected by the wisdom of the past and the unity of the present. The ancient fleet had found its true purpose at last, not as a monument to humanity's past glory, but as a bridge to all species' shared future. And somewhere, Stone thought, their ancestors were smiling.